G'day guys, and welcome back to the vlog number 9, if I'm not mistaken. Previously, we spoke about sports recovery and what that looks like in number 7, and then we spoke about a lot more, movement qualities, etc., etc. So if you haven't watched those two, definitely give them a look. The discussion as I'm going through is evolving, and I'm trying to make it more relevant. I'm not just gonna try and pour random thoughts. Like I guess each vlog is kind of stacking on top of the other, and if you get a good understanding of one, it might help you get a good understanding of another. That's not like an invitation to watch everything that I do. You probably will like some vlogs better than others, as they'll probably relate to you, or you just enjoy them a little bit more. But I guess it's kind of building and evolving, and kind of discussing what I think is relevant. And if you're jumping on watching these vlogs, then I guess you see some kind of relevance of what I'm having to say, which I really appreciate. So if you are watching this, thank you. I think there's only maybe like 9 of you, but that's pretty cool. Regardless, so today we're going to be, I guess, moving on from what we kind of spoke about last vlog, but we're going to be talking about tension and accumulating tension, like an inside and outside the weight room, and what does tension kind of look like. So holding on to tension, self-awareness, and I also just watched the only Lewis Capaldi documentary, which is pretty interesting, and I think that ties into everything. And when I watch kind of documentaries like that, and I always try and keep an open mind and a lens of how, not necessarily relate it back to the weight room, etc., but how does it relate to people in different circumstances. And I think, regardless of the environment, we are all like humans, and regardless of, the stress or the stimulus, or I hope this kind of makes sense. We all kind of react the same way, regardless of environment, regardless of whether you're a superstar musician of the world, or whether you're just a Joe average, 2 kids, 9 to 5, whatever. I think we still have very similar responses, regardless of environment. So I always kind of try and keep an open mind on that stuff, and I think it's when I do keep an open mind, and not necessarily I'm looking for something, but I think just these principles of self-awareness or personal development, they all kind of tie into each other. Just, the crux of being a human at the end of the day. So I hope that kind of makes sense, that I didn't fucking, pardon my French, I didn't absolutely that didn't make sense. So we're going to be talking about like accumulating. So firstly, tension, and the way that I perceive it, and it might be perceived differently to different people, is tension is almost like not necessarily a stress, and tension's not a good or bad thing, it just is. Whether that's like tension in the body, tension in the mind, or tension, maybe that's emotional tension, whether that is, tension that you're trying to accumulate in the weights room as well. So I guess tension might be like a little ball of energy, or just like this power, this little force that's in you. And I know this sounds a bit airy fairy and a bit woo woo, but it kind of does make sense. In regards to kind of stress, and how the human responds as an organism. So I think if you keep an open mind with the human organism factor, then it begins to maybe make sense a little bit more. So I guess we'll be, let me talk about like accumulating tension first. So And in an instance where you want to accumulate tension is, say, producing max force, so producing force through the ground. So if you want to I guess push off the ground in a propulsive or create max propulsion, which is just creating energy, creating tension, or creating force through the ground. Say it could be through the foot if you're doing like a single leg jump or something like that. So I guess the difference would be, for an example, if you're doing a single leg jump and you just hop on one foot and you throw yourself, versus, I wouldn't say there's creating a whole much tension there. Then the second piece would be we hop on one foot and we slowly do the negative portion all the way down, or a fancy word, eccentrically work our way down into that foot, and we're creating tension in that foot. We're creating tension in that foot. We're almost, I like to say to my clients, where if we're an arrow, we're trying to pull back that bow. We don't want to just like pull back the bow and let go. We want to try and pull, aim, pull, aim, and then let go. If we can, not necessarily the longer we pull, but the more we put our attention to pulling that bow back and putting force into the right players, into the right places, then we can push off a little bit better. So for that single leg jump circumstance, is we're going down, and it doesn't have to be massive, but we're creating some kind of awareness, some kind of tension. We're accumulating tension in the foot as we're going down, and then we're pushing off. So they're the big two key differences. And I think that, a lot of people have lost awareness and creating tension. And that might be that there's tension somewhere else. So, for example, it's like we're doing like a single leg RDL, and a lot of people go, let's try and put more weight into your front foot as opposed to your back foot, and they're going down, and in some examples of people, they can't create a heavy foot or they can't create tension as they go down because tension is somewhere else. So you have a look around, you look at their face, squeezing their teeth, you look at their hands, they're squeezing their hands, they're tensing their neck through here. There's all this tension everywhere else. So it's very hard for some people to accumulate tension and create, I guess, this eccentric portion in low to create force. So if we're thinking of eccentrically going down and concentrically coming up, and we do eventually want to go up. We do want this concentric phase of the lift, but it's very hard. And that concentric phase, I should say, is coming from somewhere else. So you get some people actually like lift with their neck or lift with their shoulders, or they lift with their hand. They're creating so much tension everywhere else, and they just go, I really don't feel it in my hamstring, or like they feel it in their back because for a few reasons they're not relaxed and tension's coming from somewhere else. Or I couldn't think of the other reason, but tension is coming from somewhere else, or they just have no awareness in their foot, or the second thing is just they're just not ready for that I guess progression of a phase. So like, again, you get a lot of, say, deadlifters or squatters where the tension's just everywhere, and there's no really awareness in the foot to push off. And if there's no awareness in the foot, then where's the awareness in the calves and the quads and the hamstrings? If it's just one big ball of energy going up and down, like sure, you've moved weight, but have you moved the weight utilizing your back, utilizing your neck, utilizing your shoulders? So that kind of makes sense. And if we are using this idea of accumulating tension in a back squat, think can you imagine if we're not accumulating tension? Can you imagine if we've got a 1 RM or a 2 RM worth of weight on our back, and we're not squeezing and we're not creating this tension? And for a lot of people, that's their sport and that's the outcome. But for other people, creating all this tension in their neck, and they're squeezing their hands and they're bracing so hard, and every part of their body is so compressed. But they're only doing a goblet squat or like a 12 RM back squat, but that's the strategy that they're using for this simple task. And you utilize that strategy in the weights room. You've got, and this topic's up for debate, that you take this strategy of squeezing and compressing and tightening, and you use that in a gym setting, and then you go out and then everything else is squeezing, picking up bags, walking upstairs, whatever it is squeezing and tightening, and it's stressful. Like, we're not really utilizing that much load by going upstairs or picking up shopping bags, but yet we continue to bias this compression strategy to do all these things. So again, that's up for debate, but that's a lot of what I see. Like, you put people in and I've kind of gone on to my second topic, holding on to tension, but we'll backtrack that a little bit. Is you'll put people, say, in like a 90-90 hip bridge. I'll do this with almost everyone, and just see what strategy they use, or like, or how they do it, or I take a little gaze at them, and the 90-90 hip lift is just like lying on our back, and it's just like a hamstring bridge. But I'll give them a few cues to utilize their hamstrings, or bias their hamstrings a little bit more, and they're immediately after those cues, after they kind of realize that there is some tension in their hamstrings, and all of a sudden they're looking up, their neck flexors is on, they're squeezing their teeth together, and there's a huge amount of stress, and they're lying on the floor, and they're in this like basic, which is very hard, in this basic movement, zero load. They're laying on the floor, and still they've created this whole body strategy of stress. And how are you meant to utilize your hamstrings if you're or bias your hamstrings in exercises if the whole strategy is squeeze and press and tighten? So let's say if you're using that strategy and you're sprinting, how stressful is that? Or if you're trying to use your hamstrings and other exercises, or if you're just running around the park and everything is just squeeze, compress, and tighten. So that's something to be aware about. And people think, oh, why am I so stressed? Is it X or Y, or things that are bothering them, or that shouldn't bother them, are bothering them? It's because the way they're, sorry, sweaty mustache, the way that they're moving around is a full body compression strategy. Like, everything is stressful, and they're not really, I guess, creating separation between a body part to utilize force to move, to lift, to walk, to stand. They're using a full body strategy. So that's something to think about. And I know that was a lot, and hopefully that does make sense. But if we're talking about holding on to tension, and this is something that, again, people not necessarily make fun of, but people might go, that's really stupid or bizarre. But, I haven't, I've seen it in some retrospects, but not all of it, but holding on to tension. So, and I know of people have told me that they've seen this and they've discussed it, and other practitioners of this is usually the whole thing, and their whole thing is someone has like neck pain or shoulder pain or elbow pain, whatever, and this practitioner, and I know this has been done multiple times because I've spoken to him multiple times. The practitioner will have a patient, and this person's just like a osteopath by trade, but does a whole heap of other stuff. A really smart guy, really amazing guy, and he'll run through their background, their history, and put them through a movement screen and actually talk to them. And this person might come in with neck pain, for example, and they'll talk to them and go, how's work, how's your relationship, how's your social life, and everything like that. And he'll kind of get to the bottom of it and be able to see that, okay, well, 3 months ago your neck started to flare up. What else happened 3 months ago? Oh, my dog died, and something else bad in the family happened, and all of a sudden, my old injury popped up or something like that. So, and that comes up to a whole self-awareness thing as well. But if people are holding on to tension and they can't let go of certain things, it's very hard. Going back to the 90-90 hamstring thing, it's very hard for people to create extra tension than they've already got. Say like this is your threshold, so you're like wandering up here, how are you meant to create more tension, add strength, and put more stress on top of a body that's already stressed? Because they're holding on to tension, they're holding on to something that is just not related to hamstrings, but it's related to their, like, I guess, emotional past. So that's something to consider, and it's a thing, and it's not usually something I delve into, but it's definitely a big aspect. Or yeah, so I think with pain and discomfort, there's a lot more than kind of meets the eye and that kind of stuff, but yeah, it's very interesting. Something I don't really personally practice or delve into because yeah, that's not really my thing. Sure, you can have a conversation with people and see how they're going, and then most often or not, we just go see that friend, have a cup of coffee, or go for a walk with the dog and see that friend and try and relax a little bit, and enjoy yourself and socialize and do all those healthy other things rather than going down their personal path. So I think it's important to have that self-awareness, and it is tricky, because if you're 9 out of 10 stress, you're 10 out of 10 stress, and you're just one big ball of tension, your mind's not thinking right. And so how are you meant to figure out that your hip is sore because there's no internal rotation there, or for whatever reason, and it takes a while, and it takes a big action and practice to do that kind of stuff. I think that's why it's important to just lay on the floor and feel where the tension is. And I know this sounds a bit airy-fairy, but like it works. And trying to reduce that tension everywhere, and then just have a bit of a roll around, bit of a play around, like do some like mobility drills, and really try and relax and figure out where that tension is. And if you can kind of bring a self-awareness to your hip, a bit of self-awareness to your foot or ankle, you can call it flow or whatever, or play, as you're just kind of moving around, where there is no right movement or wrong movement. There's just whatever your capacity and whatever your brain likes or doesn't like, or a place where it wants to go, it doesn't want to go. So I think drawing a lot of self-awareness to things like that is super important. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. And this is the last thing I'll say on this subject is, I think a lot of people say they have like a hip pain, but they don't address it. They'll go, yeah, I've had hip pain, but I'm just going to wait till it stops. And immediately you've said, I'm not going to even address this. I'm going to bury this tension that I have in my hip and sweep it under the rug, and, create a separation between how I'm feeling and what it actually is, or my physical and my mental, if that kind of makes sense. So I'm going to create as much separation. I'm just going to worry it, put it under the rug. And if I don't think about it, then it's not. I'm just going to wait for it to get better. But the tension stays there, and that happens way too often. And if you do that 3 or 4 times, then I think that's a recipe for disaster. But I hope that kind of makes sense in terms of tension, and accumulating tension and bringing the bow back and all that kind of stuff. The heavy foot, that's the biggest thing. And I think people are missing max propulsion. They're missing their ability to push through the ground, because there's a big disconnection there in terms of their not necessarily their sensory stuff like with the foot per se, but the sensory stuff. Like I can feel my foot getting heavy. I can feel that bow getting pulled back, and if I can do that, then I can push and push and push and push. And you'll see when people start to develop that max propulsive phase, and they develop that sensation, then they're able to use that and push through their foot, utilize their calf, utilize their hip, and one, they'll shake like crazy because this is a very intramuscular coordination thing, and they're moving through space while pushing through that foot, which, you know, we're supposed to push through. And there's a big connection between our foot and our hip, and just utilize that, and it'll be really tough. And utilizing single leg work in a max propulsive state quite well will leave people shaking, and it'll leave people going, holy crap, that I didn't know that I was not so weak, but there's just something missing. Like, sure, you can do a single leg RDL with 50 kilos, or like a rear foot elevator with 50 kilos. But if I move your knee a certain way, and make sure that there's awareness in the foot as we're going down, and we're loading certain tissues, and then we decide to push off, you will shake, you will realize how tough it is, and realize what you're missing through your running and walking and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's all from the tension point of view. As far as this is 21 minutes, so if you just enjoy the I guess the training side of things or the gym side of things, then you are free to go. This could get a bit off track, but I still think it has its presence. So if you want to continue listening to me babble, then please continue. I know 22 minutes is a long time, and thank you for watching so far. But watching this Lewis Capaldi thing is very interesting, and the way I view it is, there's this guy who has come from this small town, very small town in Scotland, that, you know, you said that there's more pubs than anything, and it's a very working class town. It's very relaxed, and probably quite a hard working blue collar area where, you know, emotions and feelings don't probably discuss a lot more, blah 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 blah. A very like tough environment, and then you've got this kid who is probably a bit creative, and even his mother says, like, I don't know where this like emotional thing comes from, because he's a bit of a larrikin and mucks around and blah 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 blah. He's very funny, and I really enjoy his just maybe not his music as much. It's good, but I really enjoy him as a person. So if you follow him on Instagram, very very funny person. But his mum's saying, like, I don't know where all this you know, emotion and, you know, all these feelings come from, but and the way I kind of view it is like this emotional guy has just been so trapped inside this environment, and you know, he can eventually kind of express himself and be creative, and then, you know, all of a sudden he starts developing these tics, and his arms shaking controllably, and he just doesn't know what it is. And then as that's going, you know, not obviously, but it might be that it's an anxiety driven thing, it's an internal tension thing, and this is where it might all wrap up, if you're still with me, that it's a tension thing. He has obviously he's been very super successful in such a short period of time, and so his environment has changed from this like really easygoing town to all these agents and managements and music staff going, we need a number one hit, we need, and I think the environmental switch from this person, from Lewis, is it's just kind of gone in his head, and he hasn't quite adapted, because he's gone from playing shitty pubs to massive arenas, and he's just not ready for that stimulation. And I think that comes from a bit of lack of self-confidence as well, because he's saying he's a crappy songwriter, and he doesn't quite believe in himself in that retrospect. So and then we've got all these staff saying we want this number one hit, and he's going, I don't think I'm good enough, and so he's flying to LA, and he's meeting with these people, and his tics getting worse, and like so I think just that pressure externally is creating this internal drama. So I think just environment has a lot to do, and just slide off track. I think environment has a lot to do with your internal. Your external affects your internal, and it's very hard for your internal to be expressed, and untrapped, if that's not trapped, if that makes sense. If this environment is demanding so much of you, and he has to take 4 months off writing, and producing this second album, because his mental health is just deteriorating. But then he all of a sudden finds that he has, I forget what the thing is, he has Tourette's, and he goes, wow, all of a sudden this all makes sense. There's a bit of self-awareness brought to him now, and he says in the doco that I was only diagnosed with Tourette's a week ago. Now I'm telling everyone, and he's saying like, this is why I'm ticky. Before he couldn't express the way he was feeling, or he couldn't explain like why he was ticking so much, and his shoulder was moving so often, but now that he can, he's telling everyone now, and he's super proud of that. And now that there's a self-awareness brought to his whole mental state, his whole physical state, he tries to create I wouldn't say a new environment, but a new way of life, a new like well-being. So like he's eating better, he's going to the gym or working out, whatever that looks like, and he's taking these medications, and he's managing everything. So I think that's super important to be self-aware, be aware of your internal and external, your environment, and how you're feeling, because without that awareness and realization and that understanding, you can't not treat it, but manage it. And you can look at that from so many different angles, but I think that's such a powerful thing, creating that self-awareness, whether that's a tension thing in your neck, whether that's realizing I'm feeling this way because of that, or my knee hurts when I do this, as opposed to my just knee hurts. I don't know why, it just hurts. But yeah, that's all I have for you. That's 28 minutes of the good stuff. And if you've watched this far, then I appreciate it. Hopefully that all kind of makes sense. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. If it does, thanks, I guess. But yeah, shoot me a message. I'd love to have a conversation, kind of building off this stuff. If anyone wants to discuss that, that's all I have for you. And if you want me to discuss anything else during ours, everyone's next vlog, then I'm more than happy to do that. So see you in vlog 10. Thank you so much.